Welcome to All Wheel Driven, a podcast by Audi Club North America, where we explore all things Audi and the incredible people who bring it to life. All Wheel Driven is presented by XPEL, the official paint protection film of Audi Club. Thank you and welcome back to another episode of All Wheel Driven. Today we are excited to be joined again by Steve Johnson. If you're familiar with the Audi Club blog and Quattro magazine, you're probably already familiar with Steve's work. He's a longtime Audi and motorsport enthusiast, and he authors our weekly Auction Watch blog, along with the quarterly auction recap in the Quattro magazine. So today since we have Steve, we're going to dive into two areas of his expertise, both the auction side of things and the motorsport side. And we'll see, kind of what's happening, what's exciting in the auction world as we head into Q4. Maybe some of Steve's favorite finds recently. And then we'll attack some key motorsport headlines from recent weeks. And as we head into 2026, which is obviously going to be a big motorsport year for Audi. So with that being said, Steve, thank you for joining us. Welcome. And let's go ahead and get started. And, let's start off, Steve, with your perspective on where is the market right now, generally speaking. What are you seeing, trend wise in these auctions that you're following so closely?
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure to be back again. The market this summer has been pretty interesting. I think that what we've seen is a lot of I called it chaos earlier. The ups and downs, the on again, off again tariffs, the effects of tariffs. I've seen some reports that really the prices haven't been dramatically affected yet. The parts market hasn't been dramatically affected yet. But then Cox Automotive recently published in their latest market update that the effects are still coming. So we'll have to see really how things work as I guess as we go into the fall here to see what depreciation does and if we go back to normal patterns. The summer has been pretty strong for the sports car segment. The Black Book guys organize it by premium, sporty car, and sporty car, and they've been strong all summer long. It's pretty frustrating if you've been in the market for a car. Prices really just aren't coming down in that segment.
Right.
SUVs have been up and down. They don't have a breakout for sporty SUVs, but just in general, SUVs have been all over the map. It's pretty hard to really pin down what's exactly driving the ups and downs that we've been seeing.
Yeah. Do you think that the tariff is obviously the big question that everybody's trying to figure out, right? What it's going to do, obviously for new cars and maybe for, recently pre-owned cars, say cars within the last 3-5 years that are on the market. Um, what do you think any impact it will have on kind of the more classic vehicles? Do you foresee anything like that with the tariffs?
Parts, I think, would be the
Hmm.
biggest thing. Clearly, the collector car world, people will collect what they want to collect, and I think that's the effect tariffs might have on that is if you're going to import something from Germany. I actually don't know if you're going to import from another country. If those tariffs apply to the collector car market, that's something I should probably learn about. But parts has got to be the
Hmm.
number one thing because if you're looking at Audi tradition for parts, there's probably going to be a penalty to pay coming down the road for those things.
Hmm. Hmm. Have you seen? And I'm not sure if you have insight to this or not, but have you seen kind of a spike in people trying to get parts now? Get parts before trying to grab them now while the deals are still good before tariffs maybe bite a little harder.
Not personally, but there's a guy on YouTube named Lucky Lopez that does some entertaining content, and he actually did just do something within the past week or so about how parts people were actually being more accommodating, saying, going back to their people who are buying from them, saying, if you order more, we'll give you a better price. So
Hmm.
they're sort of gaming the system. Like I think before the tariffs came out, people were ordering in advance to try and get ahead of it, and
Hmm.
then there was the on again, off again, on again, off again. But it would seem to me that his point was that parts really hadn't been affected that badly yet because of the way the manufacturers are working to keep their customers. They're trying not to get themselves priced out of the market.
Right, right. Sure, sure. Yep. Yeah, that'll be interesting to follow in the coming months for sure, for sure. Um, and just in as we head into Q4 here, what have you observed as far as activity goes? Are you seeing uh, more auctions, more sales, more no sales, more reserves not met, less anything, or is it pretty much as you expect, as it's been every Q4, or consistent with the rest of 2025?
Oh, wow. I haven't really compared year over year. That would be an interesting comparison there. Cox Automotive does things like that. They're looking at year over year data, but
Hmm.
larger environmental and economic factors, rather non environmental, are in play when it comes down to trends year over year. Interest rates are coming down, so it makes new cars more affordable. So, are people trading in their old cars? Will there be more cars, more used cars on the market? But another important thing to not forget is COVID really closed factories. And there
Hmm.
are less 2020 cars and fewer 21 cars than there should be because of the supply chain complications that happened after that. So that could really be affecting the market here because many analysts look at that 3 to 5 year period for what's happening with depreciation, the car sales, and all that.
Sure.
And that's what people point at the most because that's kind of what you're looking at when you're buying a car that's just been traded in. It's in that ballpark. People are trading in their car before it comes out of warranty, kind of thing, and
Right.
there are fewer of those.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. All right. So how about more of the collectible car market, right? So it's specifically the wagons that everybody loves, right? You've got the RS2 Avant, the RS4 Avants, the RS6 Avant now, um, especially the GT version, right? Those are pretty splashy, and they seem to be doing well. Do you see those as kind of maintaining like kind of their blue chip investment value, or what do you think?
Yes, the I think now that we can import the RS4 Avants from Europe, we're going to see more of those. We just had three of them hit. We'll come back to that later, I think. Um, they have achieved that level of status, especially within the Audi community.
Hmm.
RS2s, I think, already were there. In fact, I have a British friend here in the area that just loved the RS2, and he was thinking about importing a couple of them himself to try and flip. But he
Hmm.
decided to do Land Rovers instead because I think there was more in his wheelhouse than Audi products.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, that's quite a switch to go from a you know RS2 to a Land
Land
Rover,
Rover,
but
yeah.
I get it. I get it. What about so we'll talk about some other models if you don't mind. So specifically, like the B8 generation of the RS5 is now a good time to jump in on one of those. You think we're at a good depreciation level to maybe start snagging one of those models?
Yeah, in the last issue of Quattro magazine, I looked at those specifically, and I was really happy to see the trend, especially for the cabriolets. Cabriolets are rare to begin with,
Hmm.
but they've had a pretty stable price, and they're actually ticking up a little bit. But the coupes, for a good condition coupe, the prices they look to be bottoming to me. But those are those are harder to find than
Hmm.
the basic or the I should say the average RS5 has more miles on it.
Hmm.
So if you were to find a good coupe right now or a cabriolet, I think it is time to buy those because people love the naturally aspirated engine, and they're just beautiful cars. But
Right.
I own an S5, so I may be a bit biased in my opinion. I would buy.
Not bad, not bad. So, What kind of price do you think? I know obviously, there's miles and condition and so forth, but generally speaking, a good clean car, where do you think, you would be a buyer at?
Shoot, I wish I had that data right in front of me here. But it's in one more reason for people to look at the magazine back at the
There you
auction
go.
weekend, because I do a pretty good detailed look at the prices and where things have been on those. So at classic.com, if you're researching a car,
Mhm.
and I actually heard this echoed at a Porsche event I was at recently, that people who are in the sphere of checking classic car prices and just car prices in general, they use classic.com. So it's a reliable source for data.
Okay, great, great, good tip, good tip. And then what about the C7 generation when you have like the S6 compared to the S7? What seems to be happening there? It seems like maybe the S6 is climbing and the S7 not so much.
That was the S6 values have gone up about 14%, and that was rather surprising when I looked at, like, okay, this six is going up, what are the sevens doing? Um, the split was rather unique. They're the same car.
Right.
They're just, one's a sedan, one's a sportback. But I think the enthusiasts are driving, and with emphasis on driving, their sportbacks. So the sevens all had higher mileage on them,
Hmm.
and they tended to be modified more often than the sixes. Although we do see the occasional S6 running around with silly rabbit turbos and things like that now, and especially currently listed. So it's not uncommon to see a modified six. But I think it really boils down to the mileage. The sixes typically had less mileage than the sevens. You'd be looking at 50,000 miles on a six, where you'd be looking at 70 to 80,000 miles on a seven.
Okay. Okay. So probably more mileage dependent, maybe condition dependent than any real preference that folks have necessarily between the two or any
Yeah,
other.
because there's about the same number of each car on the market. I had the assumption when I did the analysis there would be less sevens than sixes,
Right.
but at any given time there's about the same for sale in America. I look at car gurus, and there's just as many as either one. So you want a sedan, you want a sportback. I mean, personally, I love the sportback.
Right. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, maybe, for folks that don't mind a few extra miles, the S7's the way to go, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Um, as far as, the general used market goes, what are you seeing as far as like buyer behavior, urgency, anything like that is, it seems like depreciation is obviously still there, especially on the newer cars, even with, as you mentioned, that kind of the dearth of cars around that were built around the COVID era. We're still seeing that depreciation, right? Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, yeah. Cars definitely are depreciating between the 3 and 5 year point. That's when they depreciate the most typically. I think as far as the trends we saw, depreciation over the summer, um, again a little bit affected by tariffs, a little bit affected by buyer behavior, like to get ahead of the tariff or whatever. Um, but the one trend that I noted the most was that condition seemed to be the driving factor. Cars that were in the best condition across the auction blocks were the ones that were selling. The poor condition cars are just keep running through again.
Hmm.
Even though that going back to Lucky Lopez video from a few weeks ago, he was trying to make the point that the more affordable a car was, you couldn't lose if you bought something like that. The cheaper car,
Hmm.
but with less expensive cars becomes poor condition. So if dealers are buying them to flip them, maybe that's one thing. But if people are buying them on themselves, like say cars and bids or bring a trailer,
Hmm.
then you're going to lean towards the car that's in better shape, that's been maintained, that's had recent service on major items, etc.
Sure, sure. Um, and speaking of that though, do you see some folks either more now or less? I know there's always some, but those bargain hunters out there that are like, they're either looking to pick up a project car or they don't mind the higher mileage, and they're just looking for, hey, I need to get into this, and as low a cost as I possibly can. Are you seeing more of those folks by any chance, or pretty much the same as you always have?
I don't know. That's a hard one to answer. I guess you never know what people's motivations are.
Hmm.
When you're looking at some of the no reserve cars out there, um, there's there's cars that people just won't touch. Which why are they not really bidding on these things? I think oftentimes it comes down to the quality of the listing.
Hmm.
If people provide good photos, I like the foot stomp. Take good pictures. Take good pictures. And
Right.
clean under your hood, people. Clean under your hood. No one wants to see a bunch of leaves under the hood, because if you can't clean under your hood, then you're not doing any service to your
Right. Right.
car. It's just-
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of, so I mean, that brings up a good point. Let's flip it to the other side for a little bit. We're talking about buying and the trends and so forth. So selling, right? You're trying to get the most value out of your car. Um, Clean it, take good pictures. What else? What else do you recommend? What are some of the things that you see that these cars consistently bring the most money, regardless of the specific model?
Well, you really need to know your car. You need to know the specifications of the car. Really good resource for that is an Audi World Forum. They have a spec catalog for older Audis, and you can use other web resources to find exactly what the equipment was on the car. So when you advertise it, or I guess when you put it on Cars and Bids or Bring a Trailer, whatever platform, you know what you're selling, so that the commenters don't sound smarter than you. I've seen that on occasion where people are providing very detailed comments on what came on the car and what didn't come on the car, and it would catch the seller a bit off guard. Especially, it looks bad for dealers when that happens, because the dealer should know what he's selling.
Sure.
On the private side of things, answer questions right away, as fast as you can. Answer in good faith. Don't get into a war of words with people. I've seen that happen a few times, and it's just people stop bidding right there.
Right.
And you have to be responsive. If it takes a couple days to answer a question, people automatically say, "Oh, he's ghosting us."
Right.
I've seen that number.
Right.
The buyers go, or the sellers ghosting us.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Well, there's the saying, you're buying the seller, not the car necessarily. Sometimes, right?
Right? Yeah.
So, all right, great advice. So moving on a bit from that, Steve. So looking again at some specific cars and some recent sales, for the enthusiasts out there, right? So cars like, say, the 2012, the R8 GT Spyder. I think there was a one out there that was a high bid of 104,000, but it didn't sell. Are we getting,
Yeah.
are we seeing a shift in that market? I mean, one sell doesn't necessarily make a trend, or no sell, but what do you think?
No. Well, since there was only 90 of those that came to the U.S. market, um, we have seen those over the last three and a half years I've been doing auction watch. We see those, 3, 4 times a year. Probably a third of the time, there's been an accident.
Hmm.
So right away, you got a stain on your Carfax. The really nice ones typically sell well. You have to know what you're selling. And it kind of goes back to the most recent one we were talking about there, bid to 104. That seemed to be a really nice car.
Mm-hmm.
The seller, a dealer, didn't have as much data on the car as commenters did.
Mm.
And there was some very value-added comments provided by an Audi Club member on the car, and the R8 GTs in general. So if anyone's interested in buying an R8 GT out there, I recommend going out there and finding that specific car and copying some of those comments, because every color that sold that year was listed, and that one was Phantom Black,
Mm-hmm.
which was the most popular color. So if you're looking for a rarer car or a rarer color, perhaps, then that wasn't the one for you. And black cars are very hard to keep clean, as we all know.
Right, right.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, I was kind of mystery, or it was a mystery why it didn't sell, because that looked like it was in very good condition. And it didn't have a ton of miles and a clean Carfax. So it probably should have sold.
Interesting, interesting. Well, it goes back to what we were just saying about the seller, right? Sometimes, that might have
Right?
bit them right there, right?
Yeah.
Another one that we saw, actually, a trio of cars, the RS4 Avants, right? There was a pretty widespread, fairly widespread, between like $60,000 and $72,000, I think, on those. Was that just condition driven? What represented the difference there?
That was really interesting. They all hit within a 2 week period. And there was one imported from Germany. Ava Silver over black. It had a custom tune on its 2.7 liter twin turbo. Sold for 60K. Okay, so I think that might have been the first one that sort of set a benchmark right there. There was a one imported from Switzerland that was silver over black again. It had a GIAC Stage 1 tune on its engine, and it had a lot of work done to it. I mean, it had new turbos, it had new engine mounts, it had new gaskets. I mean, you name it. A lot of work had been done on it. It was in California. It had a Stage 1 tune, so it had a tune from a reputable company to octane gas, whereas the other one, the 60K sale, just said custom tune. It didn't really say who did the tune.
Okay.
It didn't even say what shop did the tune. It just said custom tune. So I could see the price delta there, because there was a lot more work that went into it. One that didn't sell was a French import, again, silver over black. It was unmodified. It had minor flaws. I mean, it had been driven. You could see scuffs on the door sills. You could see some scuffs on the back seats. You could see some wear and tear on the dashboard. But it only bid to 65K. It was unmodified. If you wanted a collector car, that was the one you really needed to go for, because it was unmodified
Hmm.
and completely.
Right.
Everything was stock on it. So if you could detune engines, or like I think the previous two, you could always put it back to stock, I
Sure.
suppose. But the 65K bid one might have been the one to buy in there. It it did have a lot of work done to it, and perhaps the seller didn't want to let it go.
Hmm.
Didn't meet his reserve. He felt it was worth probably the 72K. You know,
Right. Right. And what do you think kept folks away? You think it was just kind of those wear and tear?
well, there was lively bidding on all of them.
Yeah.
It just it just didn't meet the seller's reserve, and I think some of the comments pointed out that was good
It was a
money.
good, fair price.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that happens. And then the original Quattros as well. I think one sold for just 46,000. I shouldn't say just 46, like that's nothing. It's a decent amount of money, but are we seeing? Is that kind of where with the values of these are? Have they slowed down a bit as far as appreciating?
I don't think so. The market has been pretty stable over the years, but it's also been highly variable. Out of the 23 sales in the past year, which doesn't count a project car that was literally a project car out there waiting to be redone, half of the sales are overseas. So it's clearly a sought after car worldwide. It goes back to the rally ness of the Audi brand.
Right.
But there's a huge range in sales, like from 26,750 to 104,600. So it all comes down to condition, condition, condition on those, I think. And if you're looking for one in America, we're not finding the ones that are mint condition collectibles, or at least very few. There may have been one that was in fantastic shape this past year, another one that was in good shape, or two or three that were in good shape. But it's condition, condition, condition again.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And then for the TT and the TTRS market, is that softening up a bit?
Looking specifically at the Mark IIs, I looked at those. I think the market is continues to, well, as mileage continues to climb,
Hmm.
depreciation and condition will obviously go down. Um, I think that these were daily drivers. You know, second, third, fourth, fifth owners are just driving them. They're not super Audi club enthusiasts that are keeping them in great shape.
Right.
So when you see a nice one, they're probably an attractive buy. But my guess is depreciation continues on those as any normal car until it gets to about the, call it 25-year point
Right.
where we maybe start seeing people give them more value. But if it's anything like some of the Mark Ones that I've personally seen, they're just hammered.
Yeah.
I mean, by that time. I looked at a Mark One for a friend of mine, and it was past the point of no return. It's sad. It just makes you want to cry
Right. Right.
that you know that our one of our little Halo cars
Sure.
was just driven into the ground by people who just didn't appreciate
Sure.
it.
Sure. And that's what happens, right? I think in just kind of in the collector car market in general, you see it. These cars a lot of times they're throwing like go back to the Porsche 356 even, right? You couldn't give those away for years and years and years. Then all of a sudden people are like, well, geez, maybe I'd like to have one. And then there's no more around that are in decent shape, right? And then the values start to go through the roof.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be curious to see if the Mark One TD gets to the point where the 356 is now, where people are buying Hulks
Right.
and bringing it back to
Right.
life.
Right. Yeah, because yeah, to your point, they were they made their splash, and then they depreciated, and then they were just daily drivers, and then they folks maybe I'm not going to do the maintenance on it so much, and then and then after a while though, there's not many good ones left, and it's such an iconic car. At some point, folks may catch on to that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a really good point, Joe. Well, maybe we'll live long enough to see that day.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Let's hope. Um, so now to the car that I want, the manual gated manual R8s,
Uh,
right? So I think there was one that recently sold for like 156K. Um, what do people freak out about the gated shifters in the Ferraris? They always have, right? And Lamborghini. We think we'll see
yeah.
similar for the R8 manuals.
Yes, I think we will. I mean, I've driven S-tronics and I love them, but everybody just wants to take that V10 to the red line and enjoy the engaging experience of having that shift lever. And I looked at some data yesterday as I was preparing for the podcast here. So many R8s have sold over the past 5 years. You can't separate the wheat from the chaff or the manuals from the automatics without doing a hours
Hmm.
long type of evaluation on those things. But based on what we've seen in recent sales, the manuals definitely command a premium, and I think they always will. That seems to be the one people want, and especially if you go back to before when it was the R-tronic versus the manual,
Right.
that's a clear preference there because the R-tronic was just not a very smooth shifting gearbox, and most people I've talked to drive them, using the paddles instead of letting it shift itself.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay. And then the maybe the newest one on the list here, and we talked about it briefly earlier, the RS Avant, the Performance GT, right? With that lovely, some of them with that lovely, IMSA inspired livery, right? They're selling for big money still. I mean, I shouldn't say still. I mean, they're pretty new, but there's very limited, and they're are they going to be instant classics? Are they always going to be worth this money, or is it just kind of it's the hot new thing, and then they'll go down eventually?
Well, yeah, again, we had a trifecta of these things hit within a 2 week period, and two out of three sold. They all sold for over their MSRP, but we don't know what the person actually paid for the privilege of buying that
Mm-hmm.
car. and they all had less than 100 miles on them. So they were, I'll call them clear flips.
Right.
It's like someone bought it just to turn it around again. And since there's only 85 for the U.S. market and 7 for the Canadian market and 660 worldwide, we're going to see the price premium on those. I can't imagine that there won't be some settling of the price over the next few years. The cars that don't have the mileage on them, the people that actually enjoyed their car and turned to sell, we're going to see those prices not as the stratospheric over MSRP prices. We'll see those become more reasonable perhaps, but they will hold their value at a certain level and become that the next generation of RS4 Avant in Noggy Blue.
Right. Do you think anybody, you struck a chord with me when you said, they sold and they're obviously clear flips. They're 100 miles on them. Do you think anybody's actually going to drive these cars?
Well, I have a friend who was lucky enough to get a 911 ST,
Hmm,
and he drives it every day.
good.
It's his daily driver. And we were just together at a Porsche meet, and he said that someone offered him millions of dollars for his car. And he said, "I already have money. If I sold you my car, I would have more money, but I wouldn't have my ST,
Mm-hmm.
and I want my ST." So if people enjoy their car, drive the car, why not?
Yeah,
But I don't think the RS GT will be at that level where when it gets lots of miles, will still retain as much value
sure.
as the ST will.
Sure. First of all, I want to meet your friend because congratulations. That's fantastic attitude to have. I do a lot of work in the Porsche community as well, and that's one of my sticking points. There is the folks that buy the cars and salt them away, and you know treat it like it's a stock and so forth. And that his philosophy is perfect, right? There's other
Yeah.
things you can buy and make money with. And when you're buying cars that are that expensive that sell for $800,000, $900,000 plus, what's another 100 grand, 200 grand? It's the experience of driving the car, it's the memories you make, the people you meet, and so forth, and sharing it with the world. Buying it, locking it in a garage, not for me personally. People do it, that's fine. But I do like folks like your friend. Just go out and drive the car. Have a good time. You're lucky enough to be in a position where you can buy something like that. Go enjoy it. Right.
Yeah. He had to give up a GT3 Touring
Mm-hmm.
to get the ST, but they just did the back of the Dragon, and they're headed to the tail of the Dragon pretty much as we speak.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Good for him. Good for him. Um, so even more rare than the GT, the RS Avant GT. We had an auction on the world record Audi, the fastest, 260 some miles an hour, 261, 263, whatever it was. And I think it only bid up to maybe 30 some grand, 33,000, something like that. Didn't sell. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Well, the 1993 S4. So C4 S4, 26106 on a Bonneville Salt Flats in 2012. Okay, great video posted with it. I mean, that was the perfect listing. He had everything to go with his car. I think you needed to really be a Bonneville Salt Flats mechanic to really appreciate the level of that car.
Mm-hmm.
It bid to 33K on Cars and Bids. A week later, it was on P Car Market. He bid to 35K, and then it hit P Car Market's marketplace. And I don't know if it's still there. I haven't checked in a few days, but he's asking 50K for it.
Hmm.
So let's face it, you're not driving that to Cars and
Right.
Coffee. Maybe trailer it,
Right.
but probably a very limited market for something like that. I would think a museum would be perfect,
Right.
or a real true motorsports enthusiast who has his own collection of really fast cars. Um, Maybe it just wasn't that well conveyed across the motorsports community that this thing was coming up for sale. But I think certainly was within the Audi community. We had it on our
Mm-hmm.
webpage. I think there was 2 or 3 posts we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a shame that it didn't sell, but um, I think it would probably take a mechanic or someone very mechanically inclined to buy it and to keep it going. Let's face it, you just can't let it sit around unless you're just going to let it deteriorate.
Right, right, right. Well, hopefully it ends up in the right hands at some point of somebody that will take care of it and give it the love that it deserves. So speaking, so that kind of leads into motorsports a little bit. That car certainly has some history. We talked about the Avant GT with its IMSA inspired livery. What impact do you think that kind of motorsport heritage packaging kind of has on sales nowadays? Little, some. Is it more about the numbers? What do you think?
Well, the livery on the RS6 GT is intriguing. I mean, back in the day, people loved those 90 GTOs. They sounded great. They won a lot of races. Unfortunately, they did not win the championship that year. But it's been 36 years since it raced. So, is a 20-something-year-old person that watched the races back in the day, is that the person who's buying this car? Possibly, because 36 years later, hopefully you have the financial means to drop a couple of to 3K
Mm-hmm.
on a car like that. Um, Maybe it's going to someone who lives near a track. One of the venues back in the day, and he's reminiscing about that, or he or she is thinking like, oh, that's a nostalgic thing. I want to have one of those. I mean, I'd really love to know the answer about who is the best person to market that car to, but I don't think it's your average enthusiast, your average Audi enthusiast, unless they really harken back to those days, the IMSA days. I could be wrong, but I would think it'd be more somebody that's in the older vein, such as myself, that may remember a race or two back in the day.
Sure, sure, sure. And what about just kind of the motorsport branded limited editions in general, the TT, ALMS and the R8 GT we talked about already, and some of those models. Do you think that really has much lift?
Uh, well, for ones that Audi have done, Sport Quattro, clearly a classic. Those go for huge money, huge. At the other end of the spectrum, the TT ALMS edition, um, it was a 1,000 car run, so it wasn't rare. And again, those were driven.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen enough of those to get appreciation for the condition of the average one left out there. Most of them have been modified to a certain degree because I think that's what you have to do to keep them running. The condition goes down, the mileage goes up. Ones that are in really good condition have been selling okay. Unfortunately, we've seen some of that are in pretty sad conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess again, it kind of goes back to the other point that if you didn't appreciate what the ALMS series was back in the day, then you just got a car with a red interior and it's silver on the outside or red on the outside. It's a sport car, so I'm going to drive it.
Right, right.
Uh, yeah. The R8 GT, that was done as a sort of a tribute. And that's worthy because it had lighter weight, carbon fiber components, more horsepower. I mean, that was good marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think they might have missed the connection to Le Mans that they could have made with a livery. See,
Mm-hmm.
that's what was missing on the R8 GT. It didn't have the look. It didn't have any fancy, red, black, silver striping.
Right.
Uh, Nothing to connect it back to Champion Autosports or to Mr. Le Mans himself, TK.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps if there would have been a connection there, it could have been a better sale. Other brands like Mercedes Benz. About 10 years ago, I was in a Mercedes Benz showroom, and I walked in, and I'm like, Mercedes won the championship 2 years in a row here. Where's the Formula One ads?
Right.
Where's the life-size picture of Lewis Hamilton or Nico Rosberg
Right.
with trophies? Where's the connection? But they didn't have any marketing in that way. And the sales rep said, Americans don't care about
Mm.
F1. It's all about NASCAR. Of course, this was here in Virginia.
Mm.
It's all about NASCAR. Well, now we do have that
Right.
love in America. We have 3 F1 races.
Right.
We really need to start generating a connection between the product line and car, which is hopefully where we see Audi go to in the next few
Right.
years.
Right. Right. So that's the perfect lead in to Audi F1 coming up, 2026. We're already seeing, social media buzz around that from Audi, right? Do you think that hype will they use it? I guess I should say. Will you think they'll use it, in the way that, unlike Mercedes, who maybe is ignoring it, but you think they will lean into it, Audi, when they start racing in F1 to make some sales and just kind of promote that motorsport again? Not that Audi doesn't already have a ton of motorsport heritage, but Formula One's Formula One, right?
I hope so. The problem I think we have right now is we don't have a Halo car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't have an R8. I think it's easier visually for the layman to connect an R8 to Le Mans than it would be to connect a street car of any kind to a Formula One car. There's until we come out with the next generation of Prowler with open
Right,
wheels,
right,
we don't have open wheel cars running around.
right.
So there's no visual connection. So it leaves you to marketing and livery type things. Personally, I would love to see the Audi team take to the grid next year in a color pattern that we're accustomed to,
Mm-hmm.
in a livery that looks like IMSA, shades of IMSA
Right.
or shades of Le Mans of old. That'd be perfect. I think people would dig that in a major way. Um, yeah, it's probably a bit too early to tell about the influence of marketing now. Until we see the 4 rings on the grid and people wearing 4 rings on their overhauls and in the garage, I think people will not make the connection. The lay people, unlike you and I and the other Audi Club members who can't wait for the day they take the grid,
Sure.
other people haven't made that connection yet.
Right. Right. Um, so staying with Formula One just a little bit more, and focusing now more on the motorsport side than necessarily the auction sales side. So, what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What do you most? I guess I'll phrase it this way, because I know you're excited. Like you just said, you're excited to see them on the grid. I'm excited to see them on the grid. What's your expectation?
Oh, well, we've got a lot of talent been hired on the team, and as I say that, I, I I sound just like a BMW friend of mine who always says "we" when he's talking about
Right.
BMW.
Right. Right. Right.
We've got Matteo Bonato.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 2 or 3 of his buddies from Ferrari came along. We just got Max Verstappen's chief
Right.
mechanic. So they're building the team up right. It comes down to how the engine does and how the cars work in the new regulations. A complete flip.
Right.
The whole active aero on the straights, more energy out of the batteries, and all the naysayers saying where cars are going to have to slow down on the main straights. There's been a lot of conjecture about what the racing is going to be like next year. So hopefully Audi gets it right.
Right.
That's part of the problem. Hopefully, it doesn't cool Formula One reception in general. If people don't like the racing anymore, that it might be actually the wrong time for Audi to have joined the sport. If the formula somehow taints the spectacle,
Right.
so I certainly hope that's not the
Sure.
case.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, with all with the kind of the rewrite of the technical, you know, regulations, it could be a perfect time for them to join, or maybe the worst time for them to join. But we'll see. It'll certainly be exciting. It'll be fun once we see, the beginning of next year is going to be exciting. Once we see the livery, like you said, once we see and hear the car out on track, and when it's practicing in Barcelona, probably, right. That that's when things will really, I think, start to get exciting.
You know what I'd really like to see that Audi could do now? An RS3 LMS tribute car. The RS3 LMS is doing very well in TCR.
Mm-hmm.
It is doing well here in America, not as good as this year as it did last year when it actually won the championship. But where's that in the marketing? I think that somehow we forgot that.
Right.
But we need to remember that, and it's doing well internationally in race series that we just don't get to see on our TV here. But I really appreciate the posts we have on our Audi Club webpage with the news to keep us informed on that stuff.
Right.
That would be a clear connection if we did some sort of liveried RS3, since potentially those days of the 5-cylinder are numbered.
Right.
It might not be around for that much longer. It'd be great to come out with that right now, and it would be the lesser priced alternative to the RS6 GT.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great idea. What are you? And you mentioned, again, it's another great lead in, to the racing, the customer racing, and so forth that Audi has. It's great to see, those the RS3 and the R8, LMS cars, which the R8 has obviously been out of production for a couple of years now, and they still are very competitive cars, it seems, in on the world circuits.
Yeah, it's about to go out of homologation. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But every 3 years. So I think maybe there's another year left on homologation is in the European race series, the SRO series
Mm-hmm.
in particular. The SRO here in America created the GT America class, I think it's called, so we can race the older Type 42s, and they still do well. But yeah, we just don't have the pipeline. We don't have the cars in the pipelines. The Evos, like Lamborghini's got the
Right.
Huracan Evos coming, and what's the next generation car? The starts with a T, right?
Oh yeah, the Tim. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but yes. I was at the
Yeah,
I was at one of their the launch party for it, and I still can't pronounce it. So
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. And well, an interesting factoid to bring up here, I think, because it's within the Volkswagen sphere, Porsche is dropping out of the WEC
Right.
series next year,
Yeah.
which shocked me.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Right.
Is there a disturbance in the force that we haven't felt here in America yet? Hopefully, that doesn't have any sort of repercussions into the Four Ring brand here.
Right. Yeah, that was surprising. I think that news just broke this week, that they were dropping out of that. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, Porsche's obviously they're all about racing and been dominant for a number of years. So we'll see how it goes. They're doing some things over there. They're changing. So they took a pretty big hit with their EV push, and now they're re-strategizing everything. And I know that's cost them quite a bit of dollars. So maybe that has something to do with it. We'll see. But
Yeah, we can't seem to get a break lately.
I
With
know, right?
Dieselgate.
We really can't. Um,
Yeah.
so the so again, bouncing back to Audi and their motorsports heritage, like you said, the connection between the racing and the car needs to be there, right? So even if Audi is successful in Formula One, it's going to be hard to sell an A6 based off of that, right? So what do you see?
Yes.
There's the Concept C, right? That's coming out. Which is supposed to will slot between what the TT and the R8 was.
Mhm.
Do you think that the brand really needs that halo car, that moonshot of a vehicle to, even though obviously, like you said, it won't look necessarily like a Formula One car, but at least you could say, hey, this is a premium sports car they've got now. You could see this is a motorsport company. They need that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, who wins on Sunday sells on Monday. The old adage. Yes. That clearly we need to have the connection there, because why would you become an Audi Formula One fan if you didn't have something that you could make a connection to personally? Like, hey, those guys are doing great in motorsports. Maybe I should check out their car. Yeah, I'm not an Audi enthusiast because I didn't watch sports car racing.
Right.
so so that's why we're talking,
Sure.
because back in the day, there was watching Le Mans and falling asleep during Le Mans, only to wake up and find out they're changing turbochargers in the cars and they're in the garage, like, oh my
Right.
god, what happened?
Right. Right. Do you think there are Audi models today that are, I mean, obviously you had the R8. Is there anything? Do you think the RS6 GT or even the RS e-tron GT? Do you think they could uh, live up to that? Maybe in years from now, people look back and at those as type of a halo.
I think you have to emulate a little bit of what's competing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have to be a hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
because the Formula One cars have been hybrids for years now, 11 years. So we need to have that connection. We need to, show people that you can have your motor and have your battery too,
Right.
and that means performance, and not just some little gimmicky motor between the transmission and the engine. Something a little bit more than that, because I think that's where at least for the next few years, that's where Formula One's going. There's rumors that they may go back to all gasoline powered, but
Right.
I I think we'll always have to have the hybrid component there somehow, because that's clearly the wave of the future. We can't have gasoline forever.
Right.
Unfortunately, we feel that that's going away, but synthetic fuel, perhaps.
Right.
Um, Maybe that's the next avenue we should be looking at, is synthetic fuels, fully sustainable fuels. IndyCar likes to brag that their cars run on 100% sustainable fuel. It's methanol, right?
Right.
It's methanol.
Right.
So you you have various ways you could go forward with the sport, but connecting it back to your question, what car do you market that with? It, oh wow, not not a marketing guy, but I don't see a clear connection. Going back to my Prowler comment, there's no open wheel cars in America anymore. How do you do that with a livery,
Right.
perhaps?
Right.
But the marketing geniuses need to figure that out.
Yep. Yep. Steve, we've run through the motorsport, we've run through the auction updates. Anything else that you want to discuss? Anything else we haven't touched on, in either of those realms from a motorsport perspective or from an auction perspective that you want to, kind of share your knowledge on?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I introduced my concept of the RS3 livery car.
Right.
I think that Audi ought to be, hello,
Yeah,
Audi.
I'll vote for it.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Exactly.
would buy one in a heartbeat. I would buy one in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. I have a TTRS, and I love that 5-cylinder sound.
Nice.
As I tell my friends, it's half an R8, and
Right.
that's all you can get right now
Right.
is half an R8.
Right.
But I would really appreciate that. But yeah, the auction stuff, it's chugging on, and look for the auction recaps in the magazine, and
Yeah.
maybe if maybe I can do some more in-depth analysis on things like we talked about today, like differentiating manual R8s versus automatic R8s. So
Right.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely, I'll need your help too, Steve. I'll ask you to find me some good auction deals. I'm always, out. I'm in between Audis right now, as they say. So, I could use some help myself finding that next hidden gem. So, keep an eye out for me.
We'll
All
do.
right, awesome. So, Steve, I want to thank you for folks watching and listening. Thank you as well. You can find Steve in the Quattro magazine. You can see them in the the weekly auction watch blog on the Audi Club website. You subscribe to the Unfair Advantage newsletter, right? Stay informed of the latest auction updates and Audi news. If you're not yet a member of the world's largest community of Audi owners and enthusiasts, check out the episode description for all the great benefits of membership. It's a fantastic bargain. You should join. There's really no reason not to. There's all kinds of benefits. There's great content out there and great camaraderie. From all the members, lots of knowledge. So definitely check out the benefits below. Again, huge thanks to you, Steve, for joining us today. Really appreciate your input and insight. And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for having me.